Welcome back to Harriet's Florida Kitchen. I'm Harriet, this is my kitchen, and it's Florida in the middle of a hurricane. For a long time I've been wanting to make an episode that was about disaster preparedness cooking, because I used to watch my mother get ready, and we never evacuated. We always lived in high enough ground in Tampa that we didn't have to, and people evacuated to us. But as she always said, part of the entertainment is the cooking, even after the lights have gone out. So I have a pressure cooker, she had a pressure cooker. She used to cook either on a Sterno stove, or she would cook on her chafing dish form with Sterno underneath it. I've tried it with a votive candle, and it's really not enough heat. It takes forever to bring the pressure up. But at any rate, you can bring the pressure up on a pressure cooker. And there are a bunch of things that you can make that are delicious, that you can prepare for in advance when you know that a hurricane is coming. And we're lucky. In Florida, or in any hurricane situation, you do get to plan for it. It's not horrible it is horrible, but I mean, it's not horrible like a tornado, which hits you like that, or an earthquake hits you like that. You can be prepared to a certain extent. And if you don't decide you want to evacuate, which after the last Hurricane Ian, I'm thinking the next time I might evacuate. But this is only a Category 1 that we're having today. And if you look out the window at the trees, occasionally you'll see them. And I've got the hurricane shutters down, so everything is dark. And if the power goes out, I also have, I'll just show you my very fabulous lantern. My friend Susie, who is the very person who introduced me and brought the sourdough starter to me, showed me this amazing lantern. This really is not a promo, but it is a blow-up lantern that is also can be solar. You can jazz it up with solar, charge it up with solar, or you can plug it in advance. Anyway, if the lights go out, that's there for me standing by for me to use. Now, what I suggest you always do is that my mother used to say, get a fresh chicken and a frozen chicken, because if the lights go out, then at least the frozen chicken defrosts and you've got that and you can make coq au vin with it. But you also need to make sure you get only things you'll really eat. Don't get beanie weenies if you hate beanie weenies. They can be great, I think we all know that. But we like black beans and rice. So you can make rice in advance, and it doesn't really go bad except after probably a lot of days. But if you can make it in advance, put it in the refrigerator, and then you can pull it out, and after a day or so you can still make that. And if you've got your Sterno stove, which I will introduce to you today, you can also cook the beans on top of that. You can heat up the rice. You need to get some basic supplies that of course you have olive oil, vinegar. Be sure you have loads and loads of, there go the onions all over the kitchen. Anyway, lots of onions, because they're great on everything. You need to have, you have to have lemons, you need to have peanut butter, you need to have lots and lots of chocolate, very important for the chocolate. You need to have ice cream. My mother's first rule was, as soon as the power goes out, eat the ice cream. So of course that means you have to buy the ice cream in advance to make sure you have plenty in the freezer to eat as soon as the power goes out. Anyway, there are lots of things you can make, and I will put a little list of them underneath the, let's see, I never can remember which way this goes, but anyway, as you're looking at the video, on the left-hand side, which I think maybe is right here, no, the right-hand side is a little arrow. You punch on that, that'll open up the recipe. It'll also open up other information that you can see. And so I'll put a list of the things that I like to buy from the grocery store for my emergency preparedness, and some of the menu items that just require, like, the can of beans, the rice, lots and lots of avocados. Now, very important, buy hard avocados, because over the next few days, if you don't have enough power or the power goes out, they'll soften and they'll be perfect for eating. Very, very good tip. Also, I think I might have overdone it a little bit on the tomatoes, because those will go bad after a few days. So, maybe I'm gonna have to make tomato soup or something like that. I have a great recipe for that from my friend Minda, and also from Joanne Thompson's Joanne. So that may be a cooking in the dark that I do later. But today, I'm gonna make a great recipe that is from one of my favorite cooks. Delia Smith is one of the most famous British TV cooks. And we found out about her when we moved to London, and we moved into a warehouse flat on the river, kind of like, a fish called Wanda. Anyway, we found out she lived in our building, and so we thought we better buy a cookbook to find out, so we could, recognize her on the elevator. And found out that we loved her stuff. It was so great, so reliable, so dependable every time. I felt like every time I made a great dinner from one of Delia's cookbooks, I felt like wrapping a thank you note around it, wrapping it around a brick, throwing it up my balcony or hers. Probably would have just landed in the river. I don't think I could have actually gotten to her balcony. Anyway, she did a cookbook called her summer collection, and in it I discovered one of my main go-to company recipes. Actually, it's great for just dinner at night. It's so easy peasy, but it's also kind of fancy enough for family. I mean, not fancy enough for having company. So this is what we're going to make, because we can make it. I'll tell you what I have to do in advance to it. But the thing is, if the lights go out and you've got your goodies, your things ready, your ingredients, you can make this in a heartbeat not in a heartbeat, 45 minutes to cook it on the Sterno, but you can make this very easily in the dark. Now, first thing is, if you're going to do any chicken dishes, and that includes if you make the coq au vin, if you plan to make the coq au vin, if you plan to make this one, which is chicken with sherry vinegar and tarragon sauce, her fabulous picture, you're going to need to brown the chicken. So you can brown the chicken in advance, because the Sterno, I have found, does not have a hot enough heat to be able to really brown anything. I mean, it kind of goes along, and it's perfect for simmering and medium heat and all that. It is not good for a really nice browned chicken. So I've learned that if I brown the chicken in advance, then I put that in the refrigerator, or I even freeze it, because it's ready, it's brown, it's got the great color, and then I take what's in the frying pan and I dump it out into a container, and I either refrigerate that or I freeze it. But you're going to obviously need the chicken juices and things to go ahead and make your recipe. So I'm going to show you how we do this. First of all, I'm going to prep. There's not that much prep to do. You just basically kind of strip off some of the tarragon, and you also prepare the shallots, and that's kind of measure everything out, and that's kind of it. So we'll get started. Now, the prep for this could not be easier. All you have to do is you peel the shallots, which I just do with sticking a knife through them and sort of pull out the outside, and mash the garlic. You don't even have to do anything to it. You just keep the garlic whole. I mash it to get the skin off, but that's the easy thing. And that's really it. All you do then is strip some of the leaves off of the tarragon. I have this handy little gizmo that I can do it with. I kind of stick the stick through, and it pulls some of the leaves off. But a lot of the tarragon you're going to leave in complete stems, because you're going to use it at the end. Anyway, you only need a tablespoon or two, depending on how much you're doing. I cut this recipe in half, so I only needed a tablespoon of the tarragon. So the next thing that you do is you wash your chicken, of course, and then you dry it very, very, very well. And then you salt and pepper it. Anyway, I use about... Jillian doesn't really say how much to use, so I just use kind of a handful of salt, and then I just sort of do it to taste. And as you saw, I just rub it around in my hand. And then I use my fabulous disaster pepper grinder. I've shown this to you a million times. It actually has its own light, which is perfect for this situation. So you pepper and you pepper and you pepper it, and you wheel it around, and you sort of just get the chicken salted and peppered. So the next thing you do is you put the pan, and this is all you're doing before you ever have a hurricane. This is your emergency prep stuff. So it calls for 2 tablespoons for 8 pieces of chicken, but you never can have too much oil, I think. So a couple of tablespoons of olive oil is what I put in there. And you bring that up, you put that on high heat, and until it begins to shimmer. And once it begins to shimmer, you know that it's time. It kind of has the surface of it has a kind of a, shimmer is the best way to put it. It doesn't bubble, doesn't boil. It just has a kind of a wiggle to it. And so as soon as you see the shimmer, you put the chicken in, you keep it at a pretty high heat. I like to keep it at a high heat until I get it pretty golden brown before I start to turn it down. When I begin to, turning it down is to kind of cook it on the inside, but the main thing we're trying to do here is get it to be a nice golden brown color so that it looks great. So when you bring it back out again during your hurricane event, it's going to be beautiful. Now the next thing you do is you let that cook long enough for it all to be golden brown all over. You're going to let it cook maybe as long, it may be 10 minutes or so, and as you can look at it and you can see now, it's not quite done. It's brown. I mean, it's sort of a golden color, but it's not really quite golden brown enough for what you want for your purposes. So the next thing you do, finally, you get it turned, not finally at all yet, you turn it over, you brown it on the other side, and you keep checking it to make sure it's not burning. And finally, when it's really golden brown, and so this whole process could take maybe 20 minutes or so, but the main thing is that you've turned it over on the other side, and you've it's pretty much beginning to cook all the way through, but the color, of course, is what you really want. So you take out the chicken and you put it on a platter, and this is when you put the shallots and the garlic. Remember, they've stayed whole, into the oil, and let them brown a little bit. Now, don't throw them around too much. You do want them to brown, and you want them to turn. You want to turn them over a bit, but don't toss them around, because they'll get. See what I'm doing here? I'm tossing them around. No, that's a bad idea. You really should be much more gentle than that. So, as you do it, they will turn a little bit brown. You don't want them to be like black or anything, but but just turn them just so that they get pretty. And then when you've done that for a few minutes, then you're going to add the garlic cloves and cook those in just until they're pale golden. They're certainly not going to be golden brown, because you do not want to burn them. Now, normally, if you were going to be doing this on the top of your stove, this is the time that you would put your golden brown chicken in with your shallots and your garlic, and you would cook this on the top of the stove, adding your sherry vinegar and your sherry. But that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're moving it. We're going to move it in just a minute. We're going to put it into a pan so that we can then refrigerate it or freeze it and have it ready for, yes, the hurricane. Okay, now we deal with the Sterno. You can usually get a little Sterno folding stove. Looks like this, comes out looking like this. You can buy these in the grocery store. They often come in double sets. You take them apart. You can get large ones, you can get small ones. Anyway, this is about the right size, and this will fit in the Sterno oven, which is kind of weird to put together, but pretty cool. Obviously, that goes on top. Obviously, these go on the sides. I think there's a little thing to put this in here so it'll stay put, and there it is. And so then the Sterno is going to fit into this like that, and like a little bird cage. Now, I do not like to use Sterno inside, so if the hurricane is raging, you do not want to probably do this cooking. But if the power goes out and there you are for a couple of days, oh no, that's when your Sterno comes in handy. So we're about to walk out on my little porch out here and cook it outside, because it's just overpowering. I don't know if it'll poison you in your house or what, but it's really unpleasant. And you're going to need to leave this on for about 45 minutes while you cook this particular dish. Now, we have put it in the refrigerator because I decided I didn't want to freeze it, but you could freeze the chicken and the shallot. And it's a personal decision whether you want to do the shallots and the garlic at the same time in the hot oil and then refrigerate or freeze the whole thing, or whether you want to just do the chicken, freeze the chicken and the juice, and then defrost it or chill it. Put it on this put your frying pan on this oven, and then add the shallots and brown them there. I just decided at the last minute that I kind of thought they would brown better and that the garlic would be more controllable. You certainly don't want to burn the garlic. That would be awful. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do outside, and we're going to cook it for 45 minutes over the Sterno outside. It's going to be wonderful. Okay, here's where you light the Sterno. Now, I actually lit the Sterno before I turned on the camera, and then I realized what I'd done, but it's such a pain to turn it off. So you light it with a match, preferably a long wooden match, and then you put the pan on top of it. So once you have your Sterno going and you have the chicken in, you add the sherry vinegar. Now remember, I cut it in half, so I only have 1/4 cup sherry vinegar, and I have 1 cup of the medium dry Amontillado sherry. And then you sprinkle around some of those leaves, and then you let it all sit there beautifully, letting it kind of staying at a very low setting, no problem with the Sterno, so that the whole thing barely bubbles for 45 minutes. When you get to about halfway through, about 20 minutes or so, you need to turn the chicken so that everything gets to have some of this lovely juice on it. And then I kind of turn that a few times more during the next 20 to 25 minutes, just to make sure that everything is kind of juiced up. It just makes it a little bit more wonderful. Okay, you've cooked it for about 45 minutes. You've turned it once at 20 minutes. And now it's time to lift it all out of the pan very carefully. I'm going to put it onto a platter. with all of the shallots with it. And then you're going to start cooking. We're going to do the very last bit. Now it's kind of down a little bit. It's reduced. Oh, God, that looks really, really good. So it's reduced, and then we're going to add, now I don't have creme fraiche, but you can also use heavy cream. How bad is that? And that's going to be the sauce that you put on it. Now, we put on the heavy cream. This is a little more primitive than most of the fabulously professional Harriet's Florida kitchens. That's only because, of course, hurricane conditions. Okay, so we just spread that around, cook that in a little bit, and then we're going to pour it, let's see if I can show you this, pour it over the chicken. Yum, just yum. Be careful you don't burn yourself with a Sterno, that would be pretty bad. Okay, that's done. Now, oh, yep, that's not good. Okay, now, just put this down before I spill it. It's kind of a small platter, because here comes the really tricky bit. You need to wipe off this, or whatever you're using to do the chicken, because now you've got to turn off the Sterno, and it's not that easy, so you can blow it out, but I don't think that really works that well. So I usually just put this in here. Make sure you don't have any grease left on it. Yep. Because it'll travel right up and get you. Okay. Now that turns off the Sterno. Okay, miraculously the lights have come back on so we can eat inside in also the air conditioning. One of the horrible things about a hurricane is when the power goes out, so does the AC, and it's usually in July. What we're gonna do is we're gonna shift the camera, and we're going to add attractive sprigs of tarragon, and then we're going to have a bite of it. And just get the fork and see how this has turned out. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite dishes. I'm super excited to have an excuse to make it. Now, once I figured out it would be perfect for disaster preparedness. Oh, yum, 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 yum. Maybe just a little bit of one of the shallots. Now, notice I only have 4 chicken thighs, and that is because, well, first of all, you know I don't love breasts, so you can certainly do it with breasts. But you don't want a bunch of leftovers, because you don't have refrigeration probably. So it's good to have exactly enough for the people that are in your house. In this case, it's just Philip and me. And so we will each have 2 pieces, and and since I'm making it in the morning, it's gonna be great for lunch. Yum, okay. No, I did put in the cream, okay. Oh. Boy, is that good. Oh my gosh, it is so good. Gosh. Oh, maybe just another little bit. Philip will never notice. Anyway, this is an easy recipe. Obviously, if you're making it on your stove, it's super easy. But it's also easy even if you're just doing it on top of the Sterno. And because the Sterno, as you see, the Sterno doesn't have to get that hot, because it isn't that hot. And you can just sort of cook it along for 45 minutes and it'll be great. And really, if you want to do the coq au vin the same way, and devoted fans of Harriet's Florida Kitchen will know that there is a coq au vin recipe amongst my episodes. Super easy, made with white wine instead of red. But you can cook most of that if you brown the chicken in advance and then have it ready, standing by as part of your hurricane prep. You can then cook mushrooms. I think I would probably use canned mushrooms for that. Usually of course I would use fresh, but canned is standing by, and since it's a hurricane and we're talking disaster preparedness, that can be used in your coq au vin. But the wine is the wine, and the butter is the butter, and you're cooking it on top of the stove, on top of the Sterno, which I'm just a real fan of. It's just delicious. So, one more bite. Oh, it's probably stupid. Right before I say goodbye. So thank you once again for watching Harriet's Florida. Oh, and my poppy has turned inside out. Just one second. Here we go. For my sign off in the middle of the hurricane's still raging outside. And so thank you for watching Harriet's Florida Kitchen.